Hello, Grand Rising. How are you doing today? I'm feeling real fab out in nature with my robe. So I'm feeling real grand, bitch. And today, what I would like to discuss is arguing with an ex. Now, with my journey, as I always start off, because I always gotta give my little background and tell you the lessons that I learned so we can move forward and you don't think I'm coming from a judgmental place because, bitch, I do judge. Because mostly I judge myself. I hate to be judged, but because mostly I judge myself. One of those things. And so starting off the story, I know with me, I would get calls from an ex, and I would just be like, "Why are you calling me? We don't have nothing to talk about. Like, what's the problem, Marianne? Why are you still contacting me, bitch? Like, we don't have anything to talk about." And I would be very insensitive, not only because I wanted to be done with him, but insensitive on how I made someone feel. I would just brush it off and act like their feelings didn't matter, act like my feelings didn't matter, just ready just to like move on and denying that person closure. And I didn't realize at the time that that was the wrong thing to do. Instead of like trying to block it all out, I would just act like it didn't matter. I would block it out. I would block it all out, all types of emotions, all types of everything, instead of having the closure, giving them the closure they needed and giving myself the closure I needed. And I didn't know that was kind of a form of manipulation that I was doing to someone. I didn't know that, well, I did know that he'll probably still call me again and still be annoying and this and that. And a little part of me liked that. That whole feeling of still wanting me after we're done. A part of me still wanted that type of attention, and I didn't know it at the time, but my subconscious mind was not making me, but was in the same vortex of me just like knowing what I was doing, but at the same time not aware of it, and knowing that I just want to stop all communication with you, but at the same time, I still like that attention. So I would, so when I would block out the emotions and act like, why are you still calling me? We don't have nothing to talk about. Like, I don't fuck with you. Basically, because I didn't forgive them. And I just wanted to be fully, completely done. But in all honesty, the cycle wasn't done because still didn't get the closure that I needed and I didn't want to forgive. So that cycle was still there because I didn't forgive. I didn't want to move forward because I was hurt. But at the same time, I knew that I wanted to move forward because I was no longer in love. But you see, the cycle still continued because I was just so hurt and just so angry and didn't want to forgive. So I would block out the emotions. He would call me, and the only way that he could get my attention was to argue with me because that was the only emotion that we could both relate on at the time. Now that I look back on it, because I was just so angry, and he would be so angry that I'm just like acting like he never mattered and acting like I never loved him, which was all a lie because I did care and I did love him deeply. But I just didn't want to get back into that space of talking to him again because I just knew that I wasn't in love no more. But you see, at the same time, I still wanted him to call me just so I could get that attention. But it wasn't the right attention. And I didn't know that he was doing the same thing. Hopefully you're keeping up with me. But he was doing the same thing, just wanting my attention. So the only way that he could get it was to argue with me because we both were upset. We both didn't want to forgive ourselves, and we both didn't want to forgive each other. So we would argue, and then we got to the point where it was just like oil and water. We ain't never gonna get to no conclusion because both of us is always gonna point the finger, and both of us is always going to blame each other for everything. When in all honesty, it takes two to tango. So that's why I always look at arguments as though if I'm in an argument with someone, then I played the part in it. So now looking back on it, and the roles switched when I dated someone new, and the roles switched where they were the ones mad at me and I was the one fighting for their attention. The only thing I would do was to argue, and the only thing that I would do was to try to, I guess, still try to manipulate to try to get them to come back and get them to talk to me and get them to give me a closure, to give me and their grace of forgiveness so I could forgive them as well. But it was one of those things that I had to learn from now being on the other side. Now that I'm on the other side of it, and karma always makes his rounds, and I was the one begging for them to give me closure and forgiveness. It made me realize that sometimes people, and especially exes, sometimes we don't want to forgive people because of how bad they hurt us. And forgiving doesn't mean that you have to go back to that, but forgiving is just one of those things that will benefit you and will definitely, not only you, but it benefits so many other people, because it may only seem at the time that it's only affecting your ex, but you never know. That ex could like take that out on people at work, and not saying that you're the one to blame for that, but it's like it could affect so many other people and have a ripple effect. And even with yourself, by you not forgiving, you could have that anger inside you and just be pissed off at certain people and things, and people that may remind you of them, that may like say certain things. You just get so angry. So back to my story. Now that the shoe was on the other foot and I'm asking for forgiveness and et cetera, it was just one of those things that some people just want to stay in bad terms with you. Some people want to forgive you, and sometimes it's really not worth it. Like I'm a true believer that you can forgive, but that doesn't mean that you have to be in their presence and get back to where y'all used to be, because in all honesty, it's never going to be back like how it used to be, because the trust is gone, the loyalty is gone, the whatever came out to the light just made you want to push forward. And I realized that by me arguing with my ex, I was doing myself an injustice, because what we were doing the whole time, we were both mad and both playing the victim and acting like it was the other one's fault what caused our actions. But it's not the other one's fault. It was truly our faults on why we allowed it and why we reacted the way we did. I'm not saying that we should accept everything and not react, because sometimes a reaction is needed. But at the same time, you see, we were pointing the fingers at each other and making it seem like it was all the other one's fault when we didn't look at ourselves and definitely forgot everything that we did. And when we would point the fingers, it was always one of those back and forth things where we could never get closure because we didn't want to forgive. We didn't want to accept it. We just wanted to continue denying that we got hurt and denying that the other one hurt us. And we want to deny that we didn't still have love for them, for each other. We just wanted to point the finger and continuously get the other one to apologize for everything when in reality we both played a part. So we just continued in a cycle of always arguing and continued in a cycle of always going back and forth because we didn't want to forgive. We didn't want to get to a closure because we felt like the only attention grabber we could get from each other was to argue. And in all honesty, if we just have forgiven each other and just moved on with our lives, we wouldn't have still been stuck in the past and still just continuously trying and trying and trying. Because at the end of the day, that's not love. We wasn't building each other up by trying to tear each other down, arguing. It wasn't love when we just wanted to point the finger and not look at ourselves. And that's just one of the things that I had to learn, that I will continuously forgive, but that doesn't mean that I always have to make amends. That doesn't always mean that I have to point the finger. That doesn't always mean that I have to be around. I can still forgive you. And it's just one of those things that it just made me realize that I cannot do that no more, because it's only holding myself back by not forgiving, and only holding myself back of just continuously arguing for no reason. If we don't want to be with each other, fine, that's cool. But zapping each other of one another's energy by always arguing and pointing a finger when we both had learning to do. And that was what our relationship was for, was to grow and to learn, not to continuously argue with somebody that I truly loved and still to this day have love for. But that's the cycle that we continuously wanted to be in, was to argue just to get one another's attention. And now I know that forgiveness is the greatest superpower, because I was holding myself back, he was holding himself back, and we couldn't even continue our path on love because we didn't forgive, and we just had it on our back and a reminder of what we came from. And it was just one of those things that every time someone new came, in the back of our mind, we both felt that it would be the same thing again. So we were both doing an injustice on our own lives because we didn't want to forgive, and we just kept thinking that the next guy would be like the old guy, and the old guy wasn't shit because of how they treated me. But as I always say, it takes two to tango.